legends, I hope you're all fantastic. I am finally getting around to checking out CorOs 3 for the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, which adds a lot of stuff, but the headline act of stuff that has been added is plugin compatibility. So there's a deal going at the moment, I think it runs for a few more days, where basically if you've got a Quad Cortex and you update it to 3.0, you go over to your Neural DSP account and they give you a little gift, which is a free plugin. Now, they've been updating a bunch of their plugins to the X format, meaning that the plugin will be compatible with the Quad Cortex. So I did the update, it all went fine. I logged into my account, I went, a new plugin. This is fantastic. I'm gonna get Nolly X because it's got an X at the end of it. And I got the free plugin, cannot complain about that. When I went to, bump it into the Quad Cortex and, kind of go to the new device list like you would over here, you can go up to plugins, and so far 2 plugins are supported, Gojira X and Pliny X. Not Nolly X or any of the other X plugins. Apparently they will be added in a future update. Now, if you've been waiting years for the QC to finally get the plugin compatibility, I'm sure you don't mind waiting a couple of extra weeks or months, hopefully not years, to get this. But yeah, I was hoping to be able to demo some of this stuff like the Pliny amps and effects and cabs on there. I wanted to do the Nolly amps, cabs and effects. I'll do that in a future video. I can't do it right now. But if you've got the Pliny X or Gojira X plugin, you can now import the individual amps and effects as well as the presets from those plugins into your QC. So if you've got those 2 plugins, you can go and do those on the Quad Cortex right now. We're not going to do that right now because, like I said, I'm a doofus and I got the Nolly X plugin. I thought X at the end meant it would instantly be compatible with the Quad Cortex. May that be a warning to all of you, but there's a whole bunch of new features in here, new stuff that I want to go through on here. So, I'd started the video with a little bit of King's X because you all need a bit of King's X in your life. That's the Brit 2203 with my free LTTV Mix 7 cab IR in there. One thing that I noticed was broken by this update. I've had the single IR loader as a default to just have my favorite cab IR loaded in there. When I did that after the update, this was blank. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do set parameters as default. So next time I want to upload this, it's actually one of my favorite aspects of the Quad Cortex. If you've got a favorite setting or a favorite IR or favorite effect type or something like that, when you load a device, you can have it load up at those defaults. So that's fixed right now. Anyway, what else do I have? A little bit of the plate tight in there. So let's go through some of the new stuff in here. They have added the transpose function from a bunch of their plugins. So basically, if you want polyphonic retuning of your guitar up or down, you can do that with the transpose. I'll let you hear a tone down. It sounds pretty good. There's definitely a little bit of latency under there. Any polyphonic pitch transposition is going to incur some latency no matter what. Let's hear that maybe with a different amp. I really like this red EL34 100 watt EVH stealth model. That's a big mouthful, isn't it? But let's have a listen to what 7 semitones down can do. So that's what that one is doing. And From the looks of it, you can go a whole octave down or up on there. I am just going to remove this one for now because I think I'm running low on CPU. There is also a pitch correction, so like an Autotune setting in here, and you can set the mode to be chromatic, major, or minor. I've got it set to A minor at the moment. This one is pretty fun if you want that kind of, modern Autotune sound, but on guitar. You can also set the quantize and glissando amount in there. Turn this glissando up a little bit, playing around with the quantization on there, a little bit of a high pass maybe. Let's set that around, let's go somewhere in the 500s, and a low pass on there as well, around 5K. This is kind of fun. Again, you probably wouldn't use this all the time, but if you're going for that specific effect, I think it's Another cool feature in here is the gates, compressors, and actually a bunch of other effect types now have sidechain capabilities. So this isn't a new thing, but it is new to the Quad Cortex. One cool way to do this would be, say, to connect the adaptive gate between the amp and cabinet, but set the source to input 1 on here. You'll get quite a natural gating effect because the gate is listening to the DI guitar instead of being placed after the raging hot amp on there. In conjunction with the input gate as well, I think it's pretty transparent and, it does what it should be doing. Namely, you don't really notice it. That one is probably going to live in most of my high gain presets on there, a nice little quality of life update. And you can also sidechain things like the envelope filter. So placing the envelope filter after the amp and cab, but setting the source to input 1 is pretty fun. I'm going to change the amp on here. Let's go back to that Brit 2203. I'll just turn the output up because that 5153 is pretty loud. So I'll let you hear the difference between turning the sidechaining off and then setting it to input 1 on here. I'm going to play on the neck pickup tapped. It's quite subtle, but I do like that this gives you that option. It's adding depth to the effects ecosystem on here, which is never a bad thing. There's a new 9-band graphic EQ in here. You've got the ability, obviously, to control 9 different bands in here, but you've also got a high pass and a low pass filter, as well as the ability to crank the output up. So let's say we wanted to add, say, 3 dB of gain at 1K, 3 dB overall, and then a little bit of a high pass and a low pass in there. Pretty easy to do that. This should make a pretty nice solo boost, actually. Let's hear a different amp, maybe the JP2C model in here. Again, I'll just turn the output up a little bit, and we'll hear it with and without the EQ. A great little EQ trick in general is boost the mid-range and boost the overall level. So that way your solos will cut through a dense mix on there. Alternatively, those settings would work great with an even bigger output boost in front of the amp as an alternative to a drive pedal. Okay, a feature of the plugins was the Transpose feature. I think the Petrucci Archetype as well had a doubler feature in there, which is now added in here. So let's have a listen to this one. Again, you can set the source of the doubler, but basically you have a dry level and an effects level, and it sounds like it takes the dry and sends it to one output, and then there is a very slight time delay. I don't know if they're doing anything else to process the signal in there, but it's a pretty straightforward doubler. Let's have a listen to that off and on. Again, I'm back on the EVH Stealth Red EL34. Now, my personal preference for a widening or doubling effect is a dual detune, so micro pitch shift, as it would be called in Eventide land. There's still no dual detune in here, and I feel like that is a glaring omission from the Quad Cortex. Hopefully the next update gets a basic Microshift style algorithm in there. I'll show you how you can kind of grok your own in just a little bit, but that is the doubler. In the delay section, something that I think is pretty cool as a rack delay fan, they've got a circular delay in here. So the stock settings kind of looks like they've gone to the PCM70 and got a heady amount of inspiration over there. I don't know if they've actually measured a real PCM70 and got the diffusion characteristics from it, or they've just kind of put a generic diffuser in there and set the diffusion to 42% because that's what it is on the circular delays preset. But what is interesting about this is you don't have control over each delay tap. You can set the core delay time for the main tap, and then you've got a bunch of different presets. I actually think this kind of preset thing is cool in here. It would be nice to have the ability to fine-tune all the delays to whatever you want. There's also this vintage mode, and there's modulation and trails in there. So let's just hear it straight up. There's a pretty thick sounding delay. If you're familiar with the PCM70 thing, I think this probably passes the smell test. This is interesting because this is actually a multi-tap delay. It does a lot more and goes way beyond what the PCM70 circular delays preset could do. But weirdly, it offers you less control than that unit because you can't control the delay time of each tap. You've got this kind of tap structure that can take you through a bunch of different presets. You can set the core delay time, or you can sync it to a rhythmic subdivision, but you can't get in there and fine tune the individual taps in there, which is something that I find kind of weird. There's still not a fully featured multi-tap delay. I feel like they could have gone that little bit extra and just given us control over all the delay taps. Now, I think this sounds excellent. It's probably my favorite sounding delay in here at the moment, having that diffusion parameter in there, and of course having the classic Lexicon PCM70 circular delays preset. You can even do the pan delays thing just by setting the taps to 2 over here as well and changing the core delay time. I think it's 768 you would need to set it to. But going beyond that, having the 4 Alt 5, 5 Alt 6, and 6 Alt settings in there, to me, those ones would be better served by giving you the option to actually tweak the core delay time in there anyway. I'm just kind of splitting hairs at the moment, aren't I? I think this core setting in here where you just set 3, you set the diffusion, what was it, 42% or something like that, you know, it lets you do this. Now, a cool thing to do, of course, is the old Steve Lukather trick where you'd run the PCM70. You'd need a whole PCM70 devoted to the circular delays and another one devoted to the pan delays preset. So I'm just using the stock circular delay preset over here, tap preset 3, 888 for the delay time. If you set it on tap preset 2, run it in parallel and set the core delay time to 768, you can have both of them on at the same time. And one thing I still find weird about this is just to run a single block in parallel. You know, the graphic designers have gone to all the effort of connecting this up. It would be nice if you could just use these rows like a traditional grid and just simply kind of route down here and back up. It would make things maybe seem a little bit easier on the eye, because I think everything else is so easy on the eye. The graphic designers have done such a great job with Cortex control. Anyway, this is what we get with these circular delays, one set to tap preset 3, the other set to tap preset 2 with a slightly shorter delay time. So I mentioned earlier I would show you how to put together a dual detune or a Microshift style setting on here. This is using some parallel rows. So I've got a pair of pitch shifters. I haven't set the coarse pitch to anything. I'm just using the fine adjustment. So 9 cents up over here, 9 cents down over here. But these are being fed by these utility transparent blends. And you can set the source of these blends over here. So what's happening is this particular block over here, the plate type, so row 1, column 8 is feeding into this block here. That is then feeding this pitch block over here. That's coming back in parallel and going to the multi-out. This is also going to the multi-out. So I've done that for both of these blocks over here. Now you could set this, say, to the IR if you wanted your detuners before all these time-based effects, but also coming out in parallel. So it's just kind of a way to hack parallel blending on here. Let's just have a listen to what this does. I'll let you hear this with the blends set at 0. And of course, you know, you could assign these to like an expression pedal if you wanted to blend them in. You could set them to different values in different scenes, but we'll hear it dry and then with the detuners. That is certainly nice and greasy right there. There you go. That's my Archetype plugin. It's just a dual detune as a block that you can put onto the grid without having to do all this parallel routing over here. Neural DSP, do me a favor, put that in so we can all enjoy some greasy micro pitch shift on there. That is all for today. I'll put these presets up on the cloud so you can try them out for yourself. And, you know, it might provide some routing ideas. It might provide some tonal ideas on there. I hope you enjoyed the video. And once they add compatibility for Nolly X, I'll actually do a video about plugin compatibility. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, check out my music and my Patreon in the video description. Otherwise, have a great day, keep it greasy, and I'll see you next time.